Order. Staff is going to take it from here.
All right, so staff will go ahead and call this meeting to order, and we will begin with the roll call. Chair Warren is absent. Vice Chair Flynn is no longer on the ASCC. She is now a council member. Commissioner Brand, Commissioner Dixon,
Here.
and Commissioner Chung.
Here.
We have three commissioners here, so we do have a quorum. With the chair and vice chair not present, we do need to elect a chair pro temp, and staff will take nominations at this time.
Nominate Dana.
I will second that.
Okay, and then we'll have so nomination and second, and you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Okay, so then we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Brand? Yes. Commissioner Dixon?
Yes.
Commissioner Chung?
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Brand, you are the chair for this meeting.
Before we get started, whoops. I'm going to open up oral communications for items not on this evening's agenda. We can listen to your thoughts, but we can't discuss things. So anyone have anything to say about anything not on the agenda tonight? Not in the schoolhouse? Is there anyone online?
We do have one person with their hand raised.
Okay.
Betsy M., please speak.
How do you do? I am making year-end comments just to recognize the entirety of this committee, and that includes Rebecca no longer serving on the ASCC, but to each of you, the community's hat is off. You have faced numerous agendas this year that rival War and Peace in length. So Tolstoy and I want to just thank you, applaud your incredible diligence on all of our behalf. Truly heroic work. Thanks all.
Thank you. Wonderful. Anybody else, you guys?
Nobody on Zoom.
Okay, then I'm going to close public comment and we're going to talk about tonight,
All right.
about what we're going to do, because the town attorney, did she recommend that maybe we
So for item 3A,
phone this item?
so for item 3A, there was noticing issues. The incorrect APNs were used in preparation of the notice, and therefore some of the residents did not receive the notice as would normally be allowed. Staff did work with the city attorney. It is a decision up to the commission. The Priory did do its own notification of its list that it had, which included many of the neighbors that were accidentally left off of the towns. Additionally, the commission will be making a recommendation and not a decision. So those members of the public that may not have the opportunity to speak tonight will have the opportunity to speak at the planning commission meeting, as the planning commission is the decision maker on this item. However, it is up to the commission whether you wish to proceed with this item and hear the item tonight, or if you would like to continue this item to another date. And I do believe the applicant would like to say a few words regarding that if the commission would like to. Take them.
Yes, I know this is an inconvenience.
Thank you. Yeah, we would like to ask our attorney to speak on our behalf.
Commissioners, I'm Pamela Steinmetz, legal counsel for the Woodside Priory. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay. So yes, we do understand that there was a noticing error, that the notice went out to the neighbors of the middle school campus parcel instead of to the gymnasium parcel. We received mixed communication on that this afternoon from town staff. What we do know is that the Priory, Patrick had sent out his own separate communication directly to, I think, all of those neighbors that were not noticed that week. So they did receive actual notice of the ASCC meeting tonight. Also, I think it's important to note that the Town Municipal Code, Section 1864085, which specifies the required notice for ASCC meetings, also states that if there is any error or failure to comply with the notice requirement, it would not nullify your decision, any action tonight. So you are able to go forward, and your decision tonight is a recommendation. It's not the final decision. So there will be an opportunity for all of the neighbors and the public to comment in public at the Planning Commission hearing. So we respectfully request that you proceed with the hearing as noticed. Story polls went up last week at significant cost to the Priory. We understand that if you cannot proceed tonight, that the delay will be at least 6 weeks, if not 2 months, which will have a significant effect on the Priory scheduling and finances of the financial. Yeah, there'll be significant financial repercussions. So we would really request that you proceed tonight as scheduled. If you have any questions.
Questions? Thank you.
Okay.
Well, we have a quorum, which is something, I mean, I think it would be best to proceed. We can get our comments in. I'm uncomfortable, given that there are residents out there who didn't know about this. And I don't like that because it's so process important. So I'm uncomfortable, but I think with a quorum and, with a large group of people, we should proceed. Yes, do you feel that? How about you? Turn your,
I presume that the planning commission is which does make the decision on this, that we make a recommendation to, is in a position to consider, I mean, these residents are going to be notified before the planning commission meeting?
Yes, that's correct. So we are going to expand the regular noticing that for planning commission. The codes currently for ASCC is only directly adjoining properties. We did 300 feet. In past, we've done 1,000. So we will update it, do all the parcels of the Priory. I believe there's 9 parcels, and staff will do 1,000 feet from that to ensure those residents get the notice for the planning commission meeting.
And then the planning commission is in a position to send it back to us if for some reason
Mhm.
those residents come back and.
That is correct. So they will take your recommendation. They'll hear any items. They are welcome to recommend that the item come back before ASCC if they so desire, or they can incorporate the feedback from those residents that may not have attended tonight into their approval. So they can do it either way.
was the planning commission also going to work on updating the CUP or and that would happen in the next meeting?
So both items, so the CUP doesn't come before this commission. It always goes before planning commission. But the site development does. So you're reviewing the site development portion, and then those 2 items go together for the site development and the CUP to planning commission.
I was thinking it would be a little more convenient understanding for me if I had been able to read the updated CUP before we took action on this. So it feels a little process backward to me, but if you guys are happy proceeding, I am. These guys, we can't hold them up for 2 months, not with story polls.
I mean, I think it's fine without knowing the CUP updates, because it feels like this is such a bulk of what needs to be
Okay.
amended in terms of square footages and stuff, so.
Okay, so
I'm
let's
fine
rock
with
and
you.
roll. All right, so who's going to do the presentation?
Before the presentation, there is a statement that Commissioner Dixon needs to read into the record due to a potential conflict of interest.
Okay, so I spoke with Catherine Engberg about this earlier, and I am going to read what we put together for this. And this is because my property is greater than 500 feet away, but it's less than 1,000 feet away. So it's a little bit of a gray area in terms of recusal. But the FPPC conflict of interest rules generally require recusal where a project site is located 500 feet or less from a commissioner's property. The rules also presume that no recusal is required where the project is 1,000 feet or greater away. for decisions impacting property between 500 and 1,000 feet from a commissioner's real property. It requires case-by-case determination. A commissioner's real property interest is material if the decision would change the parcel's market value, development potential, income producing potential, highest and best use, or character by substantially altering traffic levels, intensity of use, parking, view, privacy, noise levels, or air quality. My property is approximately 700 feet away from the site, so requires a fact-specific analysis. In consultation with the town attorney, I've determined I do not have a disqualifying conflict because the project will not affect my property's market value and is shielded from my property. In addition, it will not substantially alter traffic levels in a way that's different for other Portola Valley residents.
Thank you. Is that good?
Yes.
So now, can we proceed? All right, go ahead, you guys.
Great, thank you very much. My name is Jacob Garcia. I'm the contract planner for the town. And I am the project planner for this project. I've been working on this project with the Priory applicant team for about 2 years now. It's been a long process, but we're happy to see it move forward. We put a lot of effort in bringing it forward tonight. This past week, I was on bereavement, and so I really have relied on my applicant team, the town staff, and my Good City staff to help me pull together the materials. So I really just appreciate. I wanted to recognize everyone involved in making this happen. So the item before you tonight is an architectural review of a new athletic center, pedestrian connection, new road, and site development permit at the Woodside Priory School. On your screen is the vicinity map. This one's a little bit outdated, as you'll see that the land uses there are a little bit different, but it shows you the general breakdown of the parcels of the site. And we'll get more into the master overall plans, which will show us the existing land uses. So this is the existing overall master plan that's in the CUP associated with the project. I've highlighted in red squares the general areas of the proposed developments that you're reviewing tonight. This is in review of projects that are physical site improvements to the site. So your purview will be strictly to the architectural review of the physical building improvements, landscape improvements, and site development associated with the site. There are amendments to the CUP language that will be reviewed by the Planning Commission separately, which is why you don't see the red line versions of it tonight. And those will be forthcoming and would be required in order for any of these proposed improvements to move forward. And so this is the first step as the town has a roll-up policy where any decision made by the town would be approved by the highest approving authority. And so since there are elements of this project that would typically be required by the ASC after a planning commission has reviewed and approved a CUP, then we kind of reverse the order here. So that way we would allow the ASC to provide their initial feedback on the site improvements. And then the final approval by the Planning Commission would be the ultimate entitlement that would allow them to submit for building permits. And the reason that that is backwards from normal, I guess backwards to the normal procedure, is that we have full site development plans here. Typically, they're very conceptual for the conditional use permit, but since we are ready to move these projects forward in the Priory's timeline for the master overall plan, we've considered the roll-up policy for this, and we'll be looking at these more detailed plans initially for review and approval, or recommendation for approval by the ASC to the Planning Commission. I also just wanted to give you a little bit more background on the previous reviews for this project. So this has been in front of the ASC twice. We've had it in February of 2023 and July of 2023. In between that, the Planning Commission reviewed conceptually the forthcoming CUP amendments. So feedback has been provided and the applicant team has incorporated a lot of changes into their plans that they'll go through tonight. And in June, we had a separate project related to the Priory, but not related to the CUP amendment for the middle school courtyard. And so I just added that here to see the timeline of projects that have been moving forward for the conditional use, or for the Woodside Priory School, excuse me. And then after this meeting tonight, again, this CUP amendment will go to the Planning Commission at their next available meeting in the new year. And then there will be a couple of other forthcoming projects that don't or that are not associated with the conditional use permit, but will be forthcoming for the Priory, and that includes addition or remodel to the Gambetta Gym and a chapel addition and remodel and a new chapel a small new chapel administrative building associated with that chapel. And those are all plans that have been reviewed in the past by the ASSC and Planning Commission and have gotten the green light to kind of move forward on their own separate path from the CUP amendment that we're reviewing tonight. So this project before you tonight is associated with the proposed CUP amendment, and we'll be looking at the new athletic center that's located adjacent to the field. Kind of in the center of your screen, there's a new pedestrian connection that is a prior road that will be closed to allow for pedestrian use only. And in place of that road, there's a new road being proposed that's connecting Gambetta Lane into the center of campus. There's also associated grading and tree removal for the site development permit. We'll get into the details of that as I go through the presentation. And then again, just to clarify, there are amendments to the CUP language that are forthcoming and would be reviewed by the Planning Commission at their next meeting.
Can I ask a question? Or should I wait?
Got it?
Sure, I'm happy to take a question.
Regarding the CUP amendment, is the intuition that all of this requires an amendment to the CUP, or is there? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah. So kind of jumping back into these more conceptual design plans, we saw a lot of different components of these projects moving forward, which is why there are some separate projects that are moving forward on their own timelines. The projects before you tonight do require CUP amendment. And so they've been pulled away from the other projects which do not require an amendment to the CUP. And so that allows them to move forward on their own timelines and not be held up by the conditional use permit amendment. But the items here are tied to various conditions within the existing CUP amendment language, such as floor area, impervious surface, and parking. So that is why you're reviewing it in advance of the CUP amendment, but connected to.
Okay, so each of those, so floor area, the road
So
itself is.
yeah, the road is tied to impervious surface. It's also tied to land use associated with the site. So since there is a governing CUP, the Planning Commission would review it with respect to the allowed uses and opine on and discuss consideration for approval of the road itself. So any kind of guidance that you have tonight would be recommendations for consideration by the Planning Commission, who is the final approving authority for it. And so they may choose to elect new conditions or modify conditions to govern how that road is used on site.
Okay, and then a new athletic center is it? That it is floor area that it needs new CUP, or is the usage?
The floor area of the athletic center would trigger the CUP amendment itself as it exceeds the maximum allowed floor area for the site.
But the usage isn't.
The usage is tied to the use of the school, so institutional use. There are no specific uses required the CUP amendment itself that I'm aware of. We did, we analyze it kind of preliminary with our town attorney to identify what may trigger the need for a CUP amendment, what could be approved under the existing CUP. So we went through the conditions and identified that these projects here would require some sort of amendment, and most of them are physical site improvements that would require either amendments to the floor area, impervious surface, or other kind of physical constraints that the CUP puts over the site. So land uses can be considered, but it was not the trigger for why it's going before the Planning Commission for CUP amendment. However, since the athletic use of the gym and how the gym is used on site may impact the overall use of the campus, the Planning Commission may weigh in on additional conditions related to the use of the buildings that are being proposed Yeah, does that give you a better understanding?
I think so. I'm just trying to, just trying to understand what it is we're deciding on. I don't want us to accidentally try and decide on the CUP and stick to, we're basically deciding on aspects of the project under the presumption that this CUP amendment requiring aspects get approved, right?
Yeah, essentially, yes. Your review should be limited to the findings associated with architectural review and site development permit. So the ones you typically review on any residential project or building permit kind of related project that would be forthcoming through the town. So, scale, size, materials, the overall use of the building may not be something that that the ASCC would typically opine on unless it's related to the overall design of it, and how it may fit into like the site planning for the Woodside Priory. Of course, any recommendations that you make could be, additional narrative could be provided to the Planning Commission for, what recommendations or actions that you request of the Planning Commission. But they're the ultimate decision-making body on this, and they may, choose to consider your recommendations and incorporate them into the decision, or, speak to them and put them at rest if they find that they're not necessary.
I'm going to jump in with one right up because of that question. Impervious surface with the new road and the new building, is that all still under?
So the impervious surface for the site would be increased by 23,000 from the existing, approximately 23,000 from the existing conditions. It's unclear how the town had calculated this historically for the site. The campus itself, in their master overall plan, there's no specific site plan that shows the exact amount of impervious surface that exists. So for the applicant to recreate it was challenging. And we note that the existing conditions are in excess of what the conditional use permit would require. So we have a baseline condition that states how much floor or impervious surface is currently there and how much is being proposed to increase in order to allow for the projects that are before you tonight. And I have those numbers here. If you'd like me to read them. So the existing CUP allows for 315,693 square feet of impervious surface. And it's noted that the existing conditions, there is 367,425 square feet. So this is in excess. And they're proposing an increase of 23,320 to ultimately allow for a 390,745 square feet of impervious surface.
Goes over.
It's currently over, and they're proposing for an increase to what's currently there, which is more than what is allowed by the CUP. But again, there's as it is in small towns, there's not always the best record keeping. And so tracking back to how this was initially calculated is unclear. And so we're just incorporating it into the request to be considered by the Planning Commission.
We studied and looked at all the hydrology plans. There's that big culvert behind it.
Yes.
So that's good.
So there was a geotechnical report provided, and the applicant team may have their engineer here to speak to those questions more specifically. But our town engineer and geologist reviewed the plans and the geotechnical reports and hydrology reports associated with the site and did recommend approval.
Any other staff questions? No? No. So we'll throw it to you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, I have other slides for
Do?
just
Okay.
showing the site and showing the elevations if you'd like me to go through those.
So we're done.
Otherwise, I can save them if there are more specific questions. How would you like me to proceed? Go through the rest of the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a location of the new athletic building here in the center of campus, highlighted in this red square. We'll start here. We'll also see that there's all the areas in blue on this site plan show the proposed projects. There's also an expansion to the parking lot adjacent to the new athletic center. And so you'll see that also located within the box. For parking, I'm just going to go ahead and give you the numbers that are proposed here. And how they relate to the existing CUP. So the existing campus provides 314 parking spaces, while the existing conditional use permit allows for 336 parking spaces. The proposed project includes the removal of 87 parking spaces on campus and the construction of 126 new parking spaces, resulting in a net addition of 39 parking spaces. This includes parking spaces for EV-capable vehicles and ADA accessible vehicles. This results in a total of 353 parking spaces, or 17 net more parking spaces than currently allowed by the existing CUP. And this request for an increase in parking spaces and then so as a part of the current development project proposed, 83 new or replaced spaces are proposed to be constructed, with the remaining 43 to be constructed as a part of future submittals. So that you may not see them with the improvements of these projects, but saved for at a time at which the parking is determined to be necessary, and that's included within the language of the CUP for the that kind of allows the flexibility of the campus to be able to provide the necessary parking and have a little bit of buffer and room to move around for the required parking.
Is it possible that there'll be multiple sports happening at the same time, which would create a parking problem?
So the applicant team could likely speak to this more in detail as well. They did provide a narrative that's included in the staff report that speaks to all of the existing uses being maintained and not increased, and it allows for more flexibility in their scheduling and allowing for more than one sport. Are only sports that are currently occurring to occur on campus. So there's no increase in the usage that they're proposing, but allows for more flexibility, and they can speak to that more directly as well, because they are ultimately responsible for the programming. And okay, so jumping back into it, the building being proposed, the new athletic building is 42 feet in height, and approximately 34,000 square feet in size. This would trigger the need for conditional use permit amendment for the amount of floor area, and the amount of height that's there is allowed by the current CUP in town requirements. So I was showing you some renderings here. The materials are non-combustible materials, and they're consistent with the design guidelines as they meet all of the light reflectivity values. But the town sets, we have fibrous cement siding along the majority of the building in neutral colors, grays and tans, roughly, depending on how exactly you classify them, but they kind of blend together. And I'll show you some examples of what they look like and how they can, to me, sometimes I see them as gray and sometimes they're tan. So I believe that the applicant has clarified them to be gray, but I'll show renderings as well. We also have on this south elevation, this is the elevation that will be facing the field and Priory Road. I'm sorry, Portola Road. You'll see on the left side of the building is the location of the gym, which is 2 stories in height, and on the interior, it's open to the sky, the ceiling, to allow for that kind of space and movement above the gym itself. There are windows and this kind of garage-looking door that have retractable doors that will help mitigate light spill from the project or from the gym, and sound if need be. And so the applicant team has prepared a presentation that they'll kind of go through what considerations were taken into the overall design of the building. On the right side is where the locker rooms and classrooms associated with athletic uses are being proposed. There's also a viewing terrace on the 2nd story there that these stairs will lead up to. Showing you next the north elevation. So this is the side of the building that is facing upslope and towards the campus. There, the two elevations at the top of the screen are clerestory windows. You will see in the next elevations that the roofs are like shed roofs in style, and so these windows will protrude out in the direction of the campus. So here is the east elevation and the west elevation of the right side of the building where the locker rooms and the athletic classrooms are being proposed. And here's the west elevation. This is showing the gymnasium side of the building and will be facing the parking lot. And here again is that shed style roofing, slanted roofs that will have clerestory windows facing the rear. Here are the colors and materials proposed for the project, the athletic building, and we have the windows and glazing that will be treated to help for light spill. And here are the colors for the fiber cement panels and the non-combustible fiber cement panels, wall cladding. We have 3 different cladding colors. With the roofing color that's looks to be like a dark bronze, excuse me. Here is a rendering of the building. Again, showing along the gymnasium side, those retractable doors that are kind of garage style, and the upper story windows on the gym, which also shows this retractable door feature. There's also a viewing deck. This is another perspective. The viewing deck leads to a sky bridge that leads to the kind of upper road at the rear of the building, leading into the rest of the campus. And here are floor plans. This is the first floor plan showing the location of the gym, retractable seating in that gym. It's open to the second story, and location of the locker rooms and classrooms and offices associated with athletic use. Second story shows more classrooms and the restroom associated with the second story and the viewing deck. Looking at the proposed site plans, we have the new road connection from Gambetta Lane to the center of campus. This would be used for circulation, including drop off and pickup of students. There's a traffic study associated with the proposed circulation on campus. This is really under the purview of the Planning Commission. However, if there's something that's related to site development and architectural review or design, the ASCC may opine on it, but the traffic studies there provided for more informational uses. The proposed road is 26 feet in width, and again connects from the existing Gambetta Lane that was previously used for the primary entrance and circulation of the campus. On this, you'll also see the previous road, which is highlighted in blue, that goes through the very center of campus, kind of north to south. This is the pedestrian connection that this is the road that will be converted into a pedestrian connection. Moving into the tree removal for the sites, there is a total of 120 trees that were identified within the proximity of the proposed scope of work. And of those trees, 76 are considered significant, and 37 of those significant trees are proposed for removal. I'm sorry, excuse me, 76 are considered significant, and as a part of this proposed project, a total of 37 are proposed for removal, 15 which are significant and 22 which are non-significant. And then the reason for the proposed removal is, the overall site design, the conflict with the proposed construction and grading, or the health of the tree. And those are all outlined in the arborist report and within the plans themselves for the tree health, size, and species throughout the site. This is the second tree removal plan. That's the east side of the campus, where Gambetta Lane is and where the proposed road will be. And the black dash line is the area of work.
There's that huge eucalyptus going?
Yes. I believe you're referring to this one here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, just in terms of eucalyptus, it is one of the prettiest in town. You know, I know that they blow up, but in a fire, but that's a good looking uke. Okay.
The plans do propose it for removal. Moving into the proposed planting plan. There's a total of 75,042 square feet of proposed landscaping. And the applicant has provided WELO calculations and has calculated that it's using up 74% of the maximum allowed water usage for the site. And some more descriptors for your landscaping. The proposed project consists of 115 new trees and 75,042 square feet of new shrubs and ground cover. They are proposed in natural groupings throughout the site and around the new athletic center, building, parking, and driveway area, a perimeter in between site paths. It's predominantly native plants. You'll see that there's a lot more new screening along the front of the Priory building itself. And in prior ASCC meetings, the ASCC provided guidance to provide screening that was closer to the building in order to help mitigate for visual impacts as well as noise impacts.
We've been really flexible about planting at the Priory. However, the front is in the scenic corridor, and that is required native planting. So
Okay.
I hope it's all native.
Yeah, we can make sure that that's the case and but the applicant may be able to speak to that and that may already be a feature of this project. Okay, so moving to the second part of the planting plan, this is the location of the proposed road. There are some more plantings. It's pretty minimal over here as it's going through a meadow that so it's still kind of maintaining that meadow feature with some minimal plantings proposed. The site development permit that's associated with the project is required to be approved by the Planning Commission due to the amount of grading. It exceeds 1,000 cubic yards of cut and fill associated with either the site work or the fill of the building pad. This project proposes 5,700 cubic yards of cut and fill. And so this in itself would require review by the Planning Commission outside of the CUP amendment, and will be included by the in review by the Planning Commission. I should also state that the reason for the amount of grading is associated with the development and proposal of the road, as well as the athletic building. The grade at the building in the building envelope of the athletic building is to be raised a couple of feet to, and that so those numbers are included in here, and that's why it's such a large number. What the ACC.
Well, that's why it's being built here and not on the other part of campus.
Yeah.
Where there would have had to be tons of grading.
Right,
Yeah.
yes. Previous plans did have it in a hillside that would require more grading. So jumping into the exterior lighting for the campus, there are a series of fixtures that are being proposed, and that's what's shown on your screen here. I will say that typically I have a better demonstration for these types of exhibits that show like the more specific locations of lights throughout the site. So I'm going to give you a conceptual overview of it. And if you have any specific questions, we can jump into it as we kind of go through the different lighting components throughout the site. So here we have bollards, step lights that are low lightings. There are some more street pole style lightings at 20 feet and 14 feet in height. We also have some mounted sconces and eve mounted downlights and this railing integrated downlight, which is also a downlight. All the lighting complies with the municipal code with the exception of the street pole lights, which exceed the maximum allowed lumens associated with the or allowed within the municipal code. However, the municipal code does allow for the ASCC to make exceptions to this style of parking lighting. And the applicant will be able to answer more specific questions for the need and the reasoning for it. And I believe that, I'm sorry, they'll be able to speak more directly to their purpose and intent. But they recognize that the ASCC has the final decision-making authority here and have presented these plans as their kind of preliminary design goal. So jumping into what they have actually proposed, I have on the screen the extent of the exterior lighting that's being proposed. At the top of the screen is that pedestrian connection, which has lighting that kind of lines it to allow for safe movement at night. And that leads into the center of the campus where the athletic center is being proposed in the new road. These are street pole lights that line that new road coming in. And then it leads into the parking lot, which is on the left-hand side, which also has these street pole lights of various heights. So the 20-foot is associated more so with the car parking areas, and the 14 feet are more pedestrian scaled, so not as tall. And then we'll get into the architectural lighting here. And that shows, this is the first floor plan, which shows the lights around the perimeter. And these are the locations of the various downlit sconces. You can kind of see the spacing associated with them. The location are primarily at doors and along stairwells. There is a series of step lights proposed along that main kind of staircase at the viewing deck there. On the second story, we have more of the downlight, kind of recessed lights around the perimeter of the viewing deck eaves. And this concludes the presentation. I just wanted to highlight that there were no public comments that were received prior to the publication of the staff report. However, we did receive two comments, two different commenting bodies provided comment after the publication, and you've been provided with a copy of those here tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions on behalf of staff. The applicant team is here, and they've provided an excellent presentation to walk you through the project as well. And with that, I conclude and move back to the chair.
I have one clarifying question. Can you go back 2 slides to where probably the tree pole lights are along the driveway? Though along the road that's coming in, I just see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dots before you get to the path that goes down between 2 buildings. Are those pole lights?
Those are pole lights. Are you referring?
I'm talking
sorry.
about the road,
Yes,
you know, those dark spots that are along the road.
yes,
Those are pole lights.
yes. They are
Why are there lights there?
I believe the applicant could speak more directly to
Okay.
that.
right. We always say that's what headlights are for. Okay. Okay, thank you. That's my question. How about you guys?
This is just questions for staff.
Yeah, just staff, and then we'll have the big presentation.
I was trying to look this up. The height of the building being 42 feet. What other, I couldn't recall what we had decided on for sort of the new zoning that we had been working on. Are there other districts where, you know, the height's getting up to 42 feet?
I unfortunately am not too familiar up to date on the most recent zoning amendments associated with the housing element and that process. I don't know if any other staff members are familiar with what's being proposed there.
I can pull it up for you and report back out once I have it up.
That's fine. I could not find my old, it's not actually been adopted, like it's
No.
not online, and so I was searching for, shoot, I can't. Anyway, that would just be helpful to know, because I just couldn't recall exactly what we had settled on for some of those things. We need Adrian out.
I know, yes. Adrian would definitely know.
That's it? Any questions? So now we are turning it over to the Priory for your presentation.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. And just appreciate having the opportunity to speak tonight, since the founding of the town, 1957 for us, right? We've been working with the town really to live out our mission, right? But also then to support the town. And we've really worked hard to kind of develop our 50 acres, in a way that helps our students live meaningful and balanced lives, but also have a positive impact, on the town.
Please use your microphone effectively so that people at home.
Sorry. Is that better?
And you're going to have to share. Okay.
Apologies. Before we get going, we have a presentation to share. What's the easiest way to do that? Should we share through the Zoom link or should we plug in? Okay, so I will set that up.
Okay.
Patrick, if you-
Great, thanks. Yeah, we're grateful. I mean, this has been a 2-year process for us. So grateful to Jake and planning and obviously this body for, the work on helping us vision what this could be and how it can evolve and really improve. I think the feedback, the collaboration, the consultation has all been incredibly beneficial for us. And we just really appreciate the expertise and the wisdom that has helped us, get to this part. You heard from Jake, right? 3 areas, kind of a new community athletic center, a road that kind of realigns our campus, and then kind of a mid-campus connection or kind of pedestrian spine. Really, this new community athletic center is the last piece of our approved, campus master plan, something that's been adopted by the town since 2005. And so we're excited to see it, kind of come to fruition. In essence, the why, right? This really enhances our campus, right? It improves the safety, it improves the connectivity, and it improves the overall functionality of what we're trying to do. It really supports, our students, it supports, our community, and then by extension, I think it really supports Portola Valley. Some of our values really include kind of the health and well-being, having fun and joy. And when we do that kind of inside the classroom and outside the classroom, it really creates, the kind of Benedictine environment that we want to have. So we're very grateful. We purposely chose our team, led by EHTD. They and all of the consultants that are here today, they really are focused in on people, on community, and the built environment. For 75 years, they've really been leaders, kind of in that area. They really designed buildings that have kind of really worked to connect and celebrate the place and make sure that they have the lightest touch, on the environment. So we were very purposeful, in searching them out. A gentleman by the name of Joe Eschrick of EHTD, he helped design even some of the early homes here in Portola Valley. And so on some levels, his footprint, handprints are on, this community as well. I think he was inspired and motivated by Portola Valley, and I think he contributed to that as well. And obviously, we want to be faithful to that. EHTD and their team, incredibly professional, and you'll get to see that tonight. But they've designed everything from schools to buildings, public spaces, the Exploratorium, KQED headquarters. They've done a wide range, and so we've really benefited from their expertise. So tonight, as we're seeking approval to continue to move this project forward, and excited to get to the planning, hopefully. But again, grateful for your feedback and all the support you've given us throughout this process. Hopefully we'll get all linked in here, but appreciate it. They told me I only had 3 minutes, so I didn't prepare anything else. So.
Well, we've just been having a lot of tech problems in this building, so I hope it's not associated with that.
Through the chair for Commissioner Dixon's question, I do have the code up.
Pardon?
So I have the question that Commissioner Dixon asked regarding the height. So I pulled up the planning commission. The maximum was 38 feet in the new zoning districts.
Okay.
For the residential uses. So that's what's in there for that.
We're going to share our screen through the Zoom link.
Yeah.
You may have to hit accept on your end to be promoted.
Apologies for the delay. Here we go. Okay. So thank you, Patrick, for that introduction. And we're joined both in person and online today with our full consultant team. We've got Eric from Atlas Labs, our landscape architect, and he'll be talking through the landscape approach to the site and to the building. We're also joined online by BKF engineers in case there are more technical questions around impervious surface grading, site hydrology. It's something we've focused on quite a bit. And so Craig from BKF is online to answer any specific technical questions. I'll give an overview. And Brandon, our lighting designer from HLB, is also online, and we will talk in a lot more detail about the lighting approach to the project as well. Okay, next slide. So I'll move through here. I think Jake sort of outlined the scope of the project, and I know you've all been to campus. Let's go to the next slide. Basically, there are three main components to this project, as Jake outlined in his presentation. So the first is the entry drive off Gambetta Lane. It's really formalizing the existing drop-off approach that has been so successful on campus now, allowing for two entrances to campus. What's great is that it allows, you can see that we've pulled the location down to the bottom of the meadow, but it's a nice welcoming entrance to the center of campus. It allows parents to not have to drive through the facilities yard, through the residences, and through the heart of campus. This more direct route basically separates the traffic from the students and creates a pedestrian core to campus, which is really important. That led to the opportunity that you see there in the middle, which is the pedestrian spine. So we've taken that existing road through campus, we've made it a pedestrian first zone while still allowing for fire access and loading as required. And then finally, the athletic center, which you can see we've sited against the existing hillside, preserving the existing trees along that hillside and around the parking lot just to the west there, and kind of siting that building at the lowest point on campus, really set against the existing terracing hill. The fundamental design drivers for this project were really driven by, as Patrick was saying, a real appreciation for Portola Valley in this place. This is a building that we wanted to look and feel like it had always been there, and that it really feels like Portola Valley. And so that really, based on the design guidelines, had us focus on building height, building massing, materiality, but really making it feel like it's always been there, both on campus and in this larger context. Yes, this is going to be an exceptional athletics facility, but it's also a place of resilience during resilience events. It's a place where the whole Prairie community comes together. It's a new welcoming entrance to campus. We like to say it's a place of noble simplicity, so a place where high integrity materials detailed beautifully in a simple way. And it's also a place of wellness, not only because of its athletic use, but promoting natural daylight and fresh air. I'm now going to hand it over to Eric, our landscape architect, who will talk through the approach to the campus landscape and the landscape design.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Nice to be here again. Yeah, we're really humbled to be here and honored to be here and work in this valley. And so, as Emily mentioned, we've been trying to make sure that we honor the site. And so we developed this framework of a campus quilt because I think as a campus has a lot of opportunity for the landscape and the planting to really help bring a lot of these things together, both from a historical perspective, from a site ecological perspective, different slopes, so that we really focused on the larger hillside and the larger valley and how every move that we make can help naturally almost stitch things together so that it feels very much intentional when we come away from the project. And so we've developed this quilt metaphor. If we go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit more about this site specifically in the planting. We've really, again, drawn in from Gambetta Lane and that meadow and reading the site from what's there, not just the eucalyptus, but these really large valley oaks that establish that meadow and frame that meadow and that entrance. And how can we not just only restore the native meadow along that drive, but actually bring together a syncopation of new valley oak plantings that then start to bring you to that hillside so that the existing woodland and bank that Emily mentioned is protected, but then along the edges, we're really starting to remove trees that might not be native, like the cedars and some pines, and bring forth more of what's there, the oaks. And then as it comes around to the front of the building, there is again on the other side of the building towards the west, there's a really great grove of redwoods that blanket the valley floor. And so it's bringing those redwoods also in front of the building so that, again, we're trying to stitch together both sides of the oaks and the redwoods together and really blur that and provide a kind of nice veiling of the building of the site. And then that the planting is all native in our planting plan. And we're bringing all that ground cover native planting, both from the meadow, but then as it gets into the different areas, whether they're stormwater treatment areas or under the redwoods, these are all native plantings that are completely focused on your guys' wonderful plant listing that we are taking from. Next slide. And looking towards the north, north of that is a pedestrian spine that does serve as an emergency egress for fire and for service, but is primarily a pedestrian spine. And then even through that pedestrian spine, we are looking for areas to weave in native planting into that area. So when an area that's just, an asphalt road and curb, we're really starting to bring in these native plantings throughout that will help slow down stormwater and help bring together new layers of planting through that. And if you go to the next slide, we'll see a rendering of looking at the drop off at a new entrance experience just to the north of that athletic center. And again, looking up to the right, you'll see that spine moving up through the campus with new pedestrian paving, but then throughout, again, new oak planting, new, for example, Western redbuds or California buckeye throughout that would then help, we think, slow down the stormwater, treat the stormwater quality throughout the area, and then introduce a nice layer of students with this planting throughout. Next slide. And then, as I mentioned, we do have the entrance drive that is servicing the entire athletic center, and it's a it even comes in front of the athletic center. So we've had to pull away the planting a little bit from the building, but then this starts to show in front how much of that layering of planting that is between the existing field and any fire lanes that have to be used to maintain and to get access to that athletic center. If you go to the next slide, you'll start to see some of the planting that is in front of the building. So this is just off of the parking lot in front of the track. And when I mentioned the redwoods and drawing from the existing redwoods and planting new groves of redwoods in front of the athletic center, which you'll see kind of towards the middle right background, and then incorporating areas for multiple students to gather at different levels and informally to watch the games, but also to be social. And if you go to the next slide, this is a space that's a little bit further towards the east, and again, where we will have a little bit more open area to spread out and to have Western sycamores, oaks, Western redbuds, all native planting, and we think a really comprehensive improvement from what's there with a lot more native ground cover planting in trees in front of the building. With that, I'll put it back on.
Okay, so we all know as you're driving down Portola Valley Road, there's that moment where the trees open up and you get your first view of campus, and this is that view. And so you can see the athletic center there in the background. I think this starts to set up um, how we were starting to kind of modulate and minimize the apparent mass of the building. And there are a few strategies you see from this view. One is that we've broken the building kind of into two sides with a view corridor in between. The main gym is on the west side and the kind of support building on the east. And so you can see from this view that that kind of lower side building is actually kind of the foreground from this perspective and helps to kind of shield the larger mass of the gym. You can see that we're also breaking the roof into sawtooths, and that not only lets us break up the overall mass of the gym volume, but it allows us also to extend the roof eaves out and have a lower edge along that south edge. Okay, next slide. I think what's great here too is you start to see the building set up against the trees in the landscape. And it's one thing I will say when those story poles went up, I'm thrilled that in fact the trees and the hillside beyond are really above the building. And so this is kind of the overall section cut through the campus, and you can see how the roof form is kind of mimicking that form up the hill. And it really is sort of tucked in within this kind of lower valley around the track, and it's always seen against the larger campus. Next slide. And so this is kind of zooming in. Again, you're seeing the sawtooth roof, which also allows us to bring natural daylight in from the north. You can see that the gym facade to the south is primarily solid. That's doing a few things for us. It's allowing us to mitigate heat gain from that side, to pull it down from the south sun. It's also providing less opportunities for light spill and for noise. So we're really trying to limit the openings along that south edge. And this is really a building that opens up to the north and to the north side of campus, which you'll see shortly. And as Eric talked through, you know, we're really using landscape also in front of the building to really nestle the building within its site. Next slide. So this is the view. You've come through Gambetta Lane, the new entry drive. You come up, and the first view that you see of the athletic center on your left, you can see that there's a pedestrian connection to the upper school classroom building on your right. And that's where the building opens apart to create kind of views through to the broader valley and landscape. And you can see here with the glazing, this is a building that again really hunkers down to the south and really opens up to the north to feel more connected. Next slide. So we know height is an important issue. So I'm going to spend a minute here and talk through the details. First, I'll note that there is an exception, 18.54.030 exceptions to height limits. And in districts where there's a lower height limit, here the residential limit, places of assembly, schools, churches, and other permitted public and semi-public buildings may be erected to a height not exceeding 75 feet, and that is provided that there are adequate setbacks. You can see on the left that we're, 3 or 4 times the required setback amount. So our proposed 42 feet is certainly within that 75-foot exception. And this is how we're getting to the 42 feet, which is really a minimum in terms of the programmatic requirements of the building. First, you can see that for volleyball, a typical or a kind of recommended clearance above a volleyball court is 30 feet. The minimum you can provide is 26. And so we took that minimum 26 feet. We then have a just over 2-foot glulam beam that's supporting the sawtooth. And then running in the long direction of the court is a steel to minimize, again, the height and optimize the span is a steel truss. And that truss is over 11 feet. And then we have a 2-foot roofing assembly. What we've done with the sawtooth is we're able to bring down the roof level, especially at that south edge. If this was a flat roof building, it would actually have to be at that upper 42-foot limit. So the line would be all the way across the top at the upper limit because we need the height of those trusses to make that 120-foot plus span. So that's what's driving the height of the building. And the next slide, I think, is just a little bit zoomed in. You get a sense of that. Again, the height of the building is driven by really that kind of clearance over the volleyball court in the spans of the building. That second level kind of viewing area on that side is kind of tucked within that volume, but isn't the driver for the ceiling height. Next slide again. We've done it. We're happy to answer any more questions in terms of building height and how we're getting to that point. I don't think we need to go into details. Okay, so here we are on that north side. You can see the undulating sawtooth roof. This is the bridge that's coming over from the new entry drive in the upper school. You get a peek into the gym to the north. This is a area for students to wait for pickup. And you can see that we're providing an opening so you really see through to the valley beyond. This building really has two entrances, one from the school side here to the right, and another one from the track side down below. Next slide. And I won't spend a lot of time on the plans. Happy to answer questions, but basically on the upper level, there's the team rooms, the offices, and then the view down into the gym below. You can see there's a terrace and the steps that connect to the track. Next slide. And then on the ground floor, we've got the gym driven by this in the east-west direction, the regulation court and clearances, locker rooms, weight rooms, training rooms, and other support facilities. And then you can see the main entrance off the track side there to the south. Next slide. This is just a peek of what that looks like inside the gym. So again, the windows opening up to the north and then really kind of closing it down to the south. And just like the outside of the building, we're trying to create a very kind of warm, welcoming atmosphere. Lighting. As Jake mentioned, this is the proposed lighting plan from our ASCC submission. It includes lighting pedestrian paths through the spine, through the entry drive, the parking lot, and the athletic center. Our proposed light poles exceed, I guess I'll start by saying in all of these scenarios that I'm going to show, each scenario meets the town guidelines with the exception of lumen levels, which we'll talk about. All fixtures are shielded, mounted at low heights, meet dark sky requirements. They don't have a hinge or rotating mechanism. They meet the light color requirements. And in any scheme, the school is committed to occupancy sensors. And so they don't need to be on unless there are students or others there who are in the area. It's also a great energy saving measure. So the design intent for the scheme, again, was to provide light levels for pedestrians through all of the areas of campus that were impacting. The higher lumen level was to reduce the total number of light fixtures required. So for example, if we were to look in the parking lot there, Kristen, if you go to the next slide, to meet the required light lumen levels, this was the number, and I'm putting blue dots over them to call them out. This was the number of light fixtures required in order to meet the 1 foot candle light level required. So you can see it's just an exorbitant number of light bulbs and fixtures that we felt like had more of a visual impact than the light itself. Next slide. In hearing the concerns of ASCC members on the site walk and in recent conversations, we have doubled back as a team and tried to figure out what is the absolute minimum code required amount of lighting that we could provide on this project and meet this CBC exiting and light level requirements. And basically that means just limiting lighting to specific exit path areas and exit path widths as required by building code. So we looked at these areas in orange. Those are the exit paths through the building to the public right-of-way, which is shown in the yellow dashed line. So per code, we are only required to to provide lighting for light safety to 1-foot candle, just in those areas where we have a specific exit path until it hits the right of way. And so if we go to the next slide, using the higher lumen level output to mitigate the total number of fixtures, this is the absolute minimum amount of lighting that we can provide for this building and this project and meet code. And so you can see that all of the light fixtures and poles have been removed along the entry road and the north side of the building. Half of the fixtures have been removed in the parking lot. And all of the fixtures have been removed along the pedestrian spine because it is a right of way, basically. So as a team, we are comfortable moving ahead with this approach, knowing how important an issue it is here and for the town, but this is the literal kind of lowest amount of lighting that we can possibly provide and meet code. Again, this is with the higher lumen level, because if you go to the next slide, this is what we're trying to avoid, which is really a wall of light poles. We need to provide, we need this many fixtures in order to provide the kind of even 1-foot candle lighting across the required amount of exit width through this parking lot to the right of way and through the path along the side of the building. So that's really what's driving those numbers. So again, if we go back one slide, this is what we propose as what we feel is the most sensitive and least amount of light that we can provide. And again, all of these fixtures can be on occupancy sensors so that they're hopefully off most of the time. Okay, next slide. And the next slide. So that is our overview. We are happy to answer any questions in any detail. And again, our team is online as well. We're requesting approval tonight in order to meet project deadlines, and we appreciate your feedback.
Thank you. Anything else?
I think just the lighting is, it's a big deal for us, right? And we want to try and get that right. I think, you look at the minimum, I think we want to make sure we have a safe campus too, right? I mean, I think it's a both and there, knowing that we have, students that live on campus all year round too, right? So, well, not in the summertime, but, during the school day, and they walk to the dining hall and, around campus too. So we try and balance those two things. That's all.
I don't remember having conversations about lighting for code before at the Priory, so.
Is that a good thing or not? Is that,
Right.
is that good or not?
Well,
good?
I'm sure. Okay, you guys, questions of the team?
I have first of all, you guys answered most of my questions that I had written down, so thank you. You preempted them. One question I had was, I think you were talking about having shades at the clear story, where you have the sawtooth. And would those be on a timer? Or how are you controlling? Because I think you had those in there to prevent light spillage, on the uphill side.
Yeah, so all of the exterior windows have shades. And thank you, Patrick. And certainly at that height, they would need to be automated. And so they could be put on a schedule, basically. I would argue what's nice is that having the clear stories face north, you're really reflecting that ambient light back to campus and kind of up the hill. And you're also limiting kind of direct light in. So it's both, it's best for daylight and it's also mitigating light spill.
Another question I had was, so in the packet that we were sent, there's I'm scrolling through all these pages. There are some renderings, page 245, for instance. And I'm curious what has driven the change in the materials and the color scheme. I'm just looking at ones where they have more of a vertical brown siding. It seems to kind of settle into the landscape a little bit better, maybe than the ones that we were just looking at up on screen here. I was just wondering what the
So our,
change was.
I have it available. I can share.
yeah, so the material has remained consistent. I think partly it's perhaps in the rendering of it. So it's a warm fiber cement panel, and it actually has kind of a vertical texture within the panel. So what we're trying to do is create kind of a scale and texture at a variety of scales on the building. So the panel itself has texture. It is kind of a chameleon color, depending on different light levels, it actually changes, but it's kind of a warm brown gray color, I guess I would call it, but it's kind of an earthy tone. Our intent here is to mimic the warmth and texture and materiality of a wood panel without being able to use wood. So again, it's warm, it's textured, and the panel itself has texture, and then we're dividing the building within these vertical slits that are generally around 7 feet high by 12 inches wide, to again create texture at different scales. The base is a darker color, which helps to kind of ground the building, and I think also helps to break down the overall apparent mass of the building. And it too, when you look at it close up, has a kind of texture to it. It's a kind of warmer brown, earthier color. But that's the design intent. So it's fully non-combustible. It meets the LRV values, but it's kind of a range of textured earth tones, I guess I would call it. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I guess I'm wondering which is more accurate. This.
So can you
Do
show
you-
slide
do you have
22?
this? I think it'd be worth it
This?
to see.
Oh, to
It
the older
appears
I'm
much
just
renderings.
wondering,
darker.
like, which is the more accurate?
It's this specific
Rendering.
material, and it's the same as the material board. So I
more
would say that's a
gray.
little dark for what is darker than what the material really looks like. Yeah.
Kristen, if you stop sharing, we could just show the image of the reference, page 245 on the
There.
screen.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
browner than what the material is. Yeah. It's just the rendering. But the material that we're proposing is the same as what was submitted on the material board. Right. And in the, yeah.
Is this kind of color still an option?
It isn't, given that the fiber cement panel that has the texture comes in a limited number of color options, and this is the only one that is a warm brownish material.
Got it. That's helpful too.
Yeah, yeah.
I have one other question. Sorry, just give me a second. I think it was in recommendations regarding the traffic where there's wayfinding signage, and is there any plan for what that is, or is that something that we would need to look
That's one
at?
of
You know, is
my-
there gonna be a priority sign at the
Questions.
entrance off of Gambetta?
Yeah, there will need to be wayfinding signage at those locations. I think we want to, it hasn't been fully designed at the moment, but I think we're wanting to create something simple that blends in with the context of the campus, but that make sure that cars turn left as they're entering instead of proceeding up Gambetta Drive. But that specific signage has not been fully designed yet.
Oh, I see. So it's likely to be not actually on Portola Road, but a little bit deeper in where you have that split happening.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
You want to direct the cars, right?
In the correct direction.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's so simple and open right there, and so I really want to keep it uncluttered, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Those are my questions.
Annie?
I just had one for the landscape architect as to, maybe it goes beyond landscape architecture, but with regard to sound, whether or not you've done work on acoustic buffering with plants? Or otherwise, had there been any thought given to the acoustics? Could, I understand that noise from the site has been an issue with neighbors. And so there's the question of that, whether or not there are any affordances to reducing the noise to neighbors that have been considered.
I'll start.
and then you can talk about
Yeah, so we are working with Charles Salter, who's an acoustical, Charles Salter and Associates, who's an acoustical engineer on the project. We are able to control the acoustics coming from our building out to the larger context. And so we've worked with them on establishing STC ratings for all of the exterior walls and some of the strategies that you saw, like the walls that come down in front of the windows and that opening to the gym on the south side are really reflective of that. You can also look at the noise levels produced by students' events and other activities on the campus to neighboring properties. And we do have an initial report by Salter and Associates kind of looking at the typical activities that happen on campus that do actually fall within the city's standards for acoustical decibel levels between 55 and 65. The more nuanced discussion about how sound reverberates through a valley and through a bowl and through that context is more nuanced and complicated. But we have been working very closely with an acoustical engineer throughout the process, kind of mitigating those pieces which we can't control.
And then I'll just say from the landscape, outside of the actual trees or planting wouldn't do anything to mitigate sound from what we would know, like study wise outside of the sound wall, but we haven't considered anything with the planting as far as improving sound.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more question? So this, just in, looking at the impervious surface area, I was kind of doing some rough math, and it seems like about half of the increase in square footage is for parking. Does that sound about right for the impervious surface? That's a little bit,
It's mostly road,
it's
actually.
mostly road.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's the footprint of the building on what used to be a kind of softball area. There is increased road area. And then we are also providing more impervious surfaces in other areas for balance. But yeah, it's a balance of those things.
Just
Also the audit that staff mentioned.
Josh Porter, Portola Valley resident, been assisting as development manager. A bit of it is also the catch-up that staff mentioned. Staff mentioned that we did a robust audit of impervious surface existing in catch-up. And some of the square footage that's being added is because of that reason. So if you can imagine, this is now a new line in the sand that has a level of accuracy that previously Priory didn't have. I won't say that 3 times fast.
Have you looked at reducing the impervious surface area elsewhere on site? For instance, if you have these paths that are being reduced to emergency use, vehicular use only. Do you not have options to make that impervious?
That was something that we explored through this process, and I think what we're proposing was kind of that balance of areas that we felt like we could increase the impervious area balanced with those areas, the new roads and parking, the building footprint that needed to be impervious.
So this already incorporates some reduction of impervious surface out there.
Yeah, I will say too that in terms of site hydrology, this project creates improvements along the it's at the very bottom of a very long watershed. And so through the pedestrian spine, through the re-engineered culvert at the back of the athletic center, and through several new biodetention ponds, we've actually improved the ability for the site to kind of retain and treat water and for it to flow more easily through the site. So there have been kind of systematic improvements now kind of throughout the campus, ending at this athletic center to improve overall site hydrology as well.
Thank you.
More? No? Could you speak a little bit about the sustainable features of the building? And tell us about that, because I noticed there's no solar on it and it looks like a brilliant solar site. So, but talk about that.
Thank you for that question because
You're welcome.
we just, at this point, it's so integral into what we do, but it is also very much at the heart of our ethos as a firm. So this building does a number of things in terms of sustainability. And I think it starts one with this concept of wellness. So this is a place that's filled with natural daylight and with fresh air and ventilation. And so it's supporting healthy staff, faculty, and students. In my mind, the most important thing you can do to create a sustainable building is to design the building so that passively it's already doing a lot of the work for you. So sensitive massing, bringing in all of the spaces with the exception of the training room are naturally daylit spaces so that the lights don't have to be on much of the day. We're allowing for natural ventilation in the gym when that's appropriate. The sawtooth roofs come down to the south, and Dina, like you're mentioning, that is ideal for solar panels. And right now, there are the minimum number of solar panels that are required by Cal Green, which of course will be installed. And it's our intent, budget willing, to install as many solar panels as possible. It's designed so that all the roofs can hold solar panels, which would make this a net zero energy building, which we're very proud of. It's also all electric. I think it starts not only at the building, but also the integration with the landscape, the natural planning, the focus on water. And then finally, this idea of a kind of resilience hub for the campus, that this is a building that becomes a site for the Prairie community to be able to use in resilience events and to support it, the broader community in that way.
Is there air conditioning?
There is.
And where are the air conditioners located?
It is air conditioned throughout, but it's actually a mixed mode system. So the idea is that the building, it's a gym with a lot of occupants. And so you can't get away
Right.
with just naturally ventilating it. This space is just too big. So there is an air conditioning system, but it is designed that on beautiful days, which you have so often here, that the building can just be opened up and naturally ventilated. There are vents in the north clear stories along with the glazing to allow in fresh air. And we're basically, through natural displacement, we're just allowing the air to come in low and to exit high. So again, we're kind of drawing on these kind of simple passive strategies to create a really kind of breathing building.
I'm just again worried about acoustics and noise and where the air conditioning units are.
So they're within the building
Within,
they're not on the outside.
Okay,
They're within the building. And again, the acoustical requirements within the building are something we have a lot of control over. So that is something that we've been able to mitigate.
Thank
within
you.
the building structure itself. Yes.
So no more questions from commissioners? So shall we open for public comment? And let's start in the room. Are there people who would like to comment? You come up to the podium. Is it on?
I have 3 minutes, is that?
You have
No,
3
you have
minutes?
what you need.
Okay. I just want to address the noise issue.
Can you
I'm-
please
I'm-
state your name and address for the record? Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Sam Skulache. I've been a resident of Portola Valley for 27 years. I live in 16 Portola Green Circles right across from the Priory. I want to address primarily the noise issue. I was on the site visit today. What is there now is a nice, angled hillside, about a 45-degree angle covered with vegetation. And what is being proposed is essentially a speaker cone aiming at the neighborhood across the street. I understand the surface is less hard, or, you know, it's a complex surface, but it's still a harder surface. It's more vertical and it's more angled across the street. You know, it's been the case over the last 5 to 10 years, the Priory's gotten significantly louder. I do understand that, you know, the measurement by the acoustical engineer, you know, sort of measures averages, but I think that's not really capturing the peaks, the particularly loud sounds that are coming from the athletic program, the late night, you know, camps and parties that happen periodically. We've measured, some of the neighbors have measured excessive decibel levels on their front, you know, front porch in that neighborhood. So I think that this will increase the activity of the athletic field. You know, I saw the thing about exceptional athletic program. So it's certainly going to be, I think, more activity. It's going to be more activity in front of this hard surface that's kind of amplifying this. And when I talked to the architect today, I didn't really feel like I got a good answer. And then again, now I felt like there was a lot of kind of tap dancing around. Well, will the trees really mitigate? How much will the trees mitigate? No one's been saying that. No one's really got a plan for that. There was a statement here about, you know, haven't really contemplated anything beyond the plants. There's plants there now. They're not helping. And so I think I would ask respectfully that this commission actually denies the approval today until there is sufficient actual, you know, detailed analysis of what the noise impact is going to be of both the increased activity and the increased hard surfaces that are kind of pushing that sound across to the neighborhood that is really, really seriously impacted. We can hear conversations, we can hear all kinds of stuff that's going on over there. And I think this is just going to make it worse. You know, the last thing I'll say is that, you know, typically the way these things go, you know, is there will be some contemplation of this in the CUP, but then we are as neighbors left to enforce that. It's, you know, very difficult. So I would much prefer that upfront, we're clear about the expectations of this so-called healthy, welcoming, you know, building in this community, not causing a negative impact on the people that live next to it, as has been the case. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Deke, are you coming?
Sure.
Welcome, sir.
Card someone?
No, you don't need a card.
All right, great. My name is Deke Hunter. I live at 5 Cherokee Court in Portola Valley. I've been a neighbor of the Woodside Priory for over 25 years and a user of the Woodside Priory, I hate to say it, over 55 years. I can tell you as a neighbor of the Woodside Priory, you couldn't have a better neighbor. I think they look out for their community on campus and off campus. As improvements have taken place across the property over the last 20 years, I think it's been done thoughtfully and with the best intentions for both the students and the community. That said, I think the site plan is extremely well done, really well thought out. I like how they've broken down the massing, notwithstanding concerns about sound reverberation from the neighbor's standpoint, which I think they will address. Keep in mind that Portola Road does sit above the track and field by 4, 5, 6 feet. So really, I don't think the massing above, let's say the minimum level is monumental. So I think it does do a great job of embedding it in the hillside. I like the reworking of the road, smart, safe. The finishes, I think, Gina, you made a really good point. One of the elevations came off a little creamy, and not as much on the earth tones and darker tones that I think would fit better. But all in all, I think it is a great plan. I think it's the right decision for the property. And I think with the opportunity to add some additional landscaping, keep some of the older eucalyptus trees, while they are precarious, they are kind of beautiful too. I think that will help mitigating the sound transfer. But from my standpoint, I walked that piece of property more than probably than I should, because I have my dog with me. I'm glad that they continue to grow and continue to service our community. And I hope you look at this application favorable. Thank you.
Well, you can give them to them. We don't want them.
Hi. Okay. My name is Kimberly Cashin. I live at 3 Veronica Place. Our house backs up directly to the back of the Priory. I'm going to counter the noise issues. We've actually never had noise issues. In fact, when We hear children playing sports and various activities throughout the summer with their programs. It's actually a really nice sound, hearing everybody have a good time. I think it's really a nice thing to listen to. My children, among many other families that we know, they've been born and raised here. They've attended various programs at the Priory. My oldest took a CPR class offered to the public just last summer. They're a wonderful asset to our community. Clearly, the design firm that they are choosing to use for this proposed site has had very thoughtful improvements. And they are partnering with the environmental design requirements that the town guidance provides. I think that their athletic center is stunning. And we should all be so lucky to have a firm like this working in our local community. I fully propose this, or I fully support the proposal for this site, as well as the secondary entrance. I think any logical person would understand that that is going to alleviate any bottleneck traffic that is actually sometimes already happening just with the one entrance that they have. So thank you for your time to hear my support, and I hope everybody has a healthy holiday season. Thanks.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Miles Somerville. I've lived in Portola Valley for now 14 years. I live and work at the Priory. Simply put, I love Portola Valley. I could not have landed in a better spot. I think what I love most about Portola Valley, the Priory symbolizes so inherently. When I walk around our campus, I start at the top of campus where the faculty housing is. And if you think about the diversity we bring to Portola Valley town, the teachers, that's one thing that just stands out to me every single morning waking up there. As I walk down the hill to our new track, I see so many Portola Valley families using it, kids playing soccer on the fields, healthy, engaging activity, which would be tough to just do only in our town facilities. When I go to our PAC and see families, Portola Valley families, watching the plays, enjoying the plays, coming together as a community, even if they don't have kids at our school, I'm reminded about how much the Priory matters to where I live, not only my workplace, but where I live. As for this gym, I can only see it bringing that much better things to our town. I coach all three of my kids' basketball teams and soccer teams in town. I've got 3 kids who've gone to Ormondale and Corte Madera. I volunteer my time to coach them. To have space, I'm actually planning a team building exercise with my 3rd graders basketball team where we're going to go to a game in January, see some good basketball. And I can't imagine Portola Valley not having that opportunity. The gym will only bring more opportunities for that. As a coach, having an extra space, if the town ever needed it, to have some more field space and court space for our kids. I think the Priory has shown that every facility it's built has brought in so much more to the town. And as we discuss feet in our ceilings and lighting, I just hope that we also take that in as the greater good of what will come from this facility and what the greater good the Priory has already brought in the town of Portola Valley. So I'm in full support of this, Jim. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, Caroline Vertonghen. I have several concerns. I would like to know what the real maximum is going to be with the growth of Woodside Priory. You know, for residents who have lived here for a long time, it used to be a maximum of 250 students. Then it became 350. And then, as you know, in December 2021, then they got permitted 94. But with every growth of student body comes a growth of staffing and a growth of service providers. We have issues with traffic. And unfortunately, these issues started already when we had 250 students and 350 students, and they never got resolved. We have that crosswalk by the Priory, the main entrance. The town had a safety study plan, was approved in 2019 on condition that the crosswalk would be moved away from the actual location, and it would be closer to, or closer to the Corte Madera street. Right now, so then in 2021, they opened Gambetta. And that was supposed to be a one-way road. So one way in and one way out. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. And so when you see the traffic reports and the recommendations, again, they promise that there will be somebody monitoring. It's not being done, and it's never been done. And so we have ongoing issues. And the Bike, Pedestrian, and Traffic Safety Committee has invited Woodside Priory to come and speak to us. We have asked Town Council to see the traffic reports that are being drawn by our traffic consultant, and we have not seen anything. So in order to solve ongoing issues before we add more issues, please don't accept it tonight and make a condition that they work with our committee and with the residents to solve ongoing issues. So then we can expand the campus. Thank you.
Thanks, Connie. Hi. Come on up.
My name's David Mosley. I've been at the Priory for 17 years. I've lived in Portola Valley the last 7. I've seen a lot of changes over that time. And a lot of them really good, especially considering the athletic facilities. Before, kids used to run on a dirt track, and now we have a new track. During the pandemic, we opened up our campus to everyone that came on to the Priory, and it was just an amazing experience. And I feel the addition of our new athletic center will do that for the town as well. I coach many of these kids that are here in the town. I've coached kids that are here. I see your parents here. And you know, that amount of support that's for the town that goes beyond just our students can really be improved, heightened, and expanded with this center. And way more opportunities can be provided. So I just want to say that I'm in support of this. As a Portola Valley resident, I support the athletic center.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rich, is there anybody online? What? Yeah, you can. I just thought I'd mix it up.
For those attending on Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to be heard. And we'll continue with those that are here in the
Okay, so this is a first for me. My name is Craig Heber. I live at 6 Portola Green Circle. I've lived in Portola Valley for 20 years. And when I was going to Stanford, I said one day, either here or up in the hills. So, I mean, I love Portola Valley. I will never deny that the Priory does wonderful things, but noise is a problem. Even if the CUP is amended, noise is still a problem because the compliance and enforcement ends up being a burden on the residents. So I would ask that the noise problem be considered seriously and a little bit more effectively. I think that the noise and acoustic study should be made available so that we can understand it. And those are my recommendations and my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
Judy Murphy. I've been here for 30 years in town. I live across from the Priory. I'm very concerned that our concerns about the details of the project are not at all criticisms of the Priory. These things have sort of boiled down to, oh, we're for the Priory. You know, you must be against the Priory, and that's absolutely not so. There are ways in which they're terrific neighbors, and it's a great asset. I walk the track, et cetera, et cetera. But I do have some issues. First of all, I share Kenny's concern. Kenny brought it up, and I think you in fact are being asked to approve a project that's in violation of the current CUP. And that when they talk about amendments to the CUP, they're talking about changing the CUP in all the ways that would make this proposal acceptable. And that's very cart before the horse, to my way of thinking. You wouldn't have a project come to town that's in violation of the general plan and then say, oh, well, we'll shift the general plan so that we can build this project. There's a larger issue here that concerns me. I'd like to talk a little bit about the lights, the light fixtures. I'm worried, I saw her drawings and it, I sort of understand it, but it's still very concerning that there'd be that much light. Those of us who live right across the street and see it, that's a lot of light. And I would reference Alpine Hills, which when it went through the process and you looked at the plans, didn't look like bad. And yet you drive down Alpine Road and it's like a spaceship has landed at night. There's so much lighting. And I would hate to see this look like Alpine Hazlets in the evening. And I don't know how you can make sure it doesn't. Having the light fixtures motion turned on is nice in some ways, but it forgets that deer go through here. And so the things could be going, blinking on and off, on and off all night, like Christmas tree lights for the people who are facing it. So that's a consideration too. I actually don't have any trouble with those lights that are out of compliance being on the inside. If they're on the inside, if they're on the inside on the new pedestrian path, they don't really affect the rest of the community that much. So if you guys want lights like that on that path for pedestrian safety, makes sense to me. I wouldn't necessarily take those out. But the ones that are facing Portola Road are quite problematic. And I'm not sure how you solve the problem, but it seems to me it remains a problem to be seen. I'll say a little bit about noise. The acoustic study that you referenced, they said that they didn't find anything more than the 65 decibels, but Craig and I have stood over where we are in his yard and it's 65 decibels there. So for me, hearing the kids playing, I agree, is really fun and nice. And it doesn't bother me to hear the games going on. It's the whistles and the shrieks, and especially the amplification of music at odd hours that are already a problem. And then when you put up a big building that's going to bounce it back so that we hear it once and then we hear it again from the surface of that's a problem. So I want to put on a slightly different hat and say that I don't see in your packet a conservation committee report. And normally when there's a project of this size with this much landscaping, it comes to conservation and we have a chance to say something about it. So the only thing I would say, wearing that hat, is that the meadow should stay the meadow. And I really don't want to see light poles through the meadow. And I don't want to see trees for enhancing the road through that meadow. The meadow should stay a meadow. Thank you.
Or comments from the residents in the room or anybody in the room? Christy, it looks like you're getting up. And here she goes.
Hi, we all love the Priory, don't get us wrong, but we also love our dark town and we love our animals and our trees. And that's why we moved here. So I'm going to start with that. I am concerned about the light poles. I didn't see any story poles for the light poles. So if you live at 230 Nathhorst, which a friend of mine's mother-in-law does, it shares a fence with Gambetta. And it is that house that goes in and out. If you could put it up so we could see Gambetta, and it concerns me that, did they get the mailer? Were they invited? Did anybody knock on her door? And were they invited to take a tour and really understand what's going to happen on the other side of that fence? It's really important to knock on people's door that is very close. And I'm not sure, I happen to be with larger properties, 500 feet away can be 2 properties. And so it's really important to go that extra effort. And I'm not sure that the rest of the residents, this is a CUP, and in the CUP it says to let everyone know in as many ways as possible. So that would be almanac, at least the almanac, and give us time to absorb it and think about it and what about this and what about that? If you are rushing this through, we haven't had time to think about it. And it's December 17th and people are already on holiday. So I don't like to see things rush through in December. I think it's actually not appropriate for, if you really care about our community, to really take time to educate our community. So there's light spill possibly from the pool on Gambetta as you go through the meadow. I'd like to see those story pulled so you could stand in a backyard and say, oh, that's a light pole and I'm gonna see that, you know? And how many of them am I gonna see from that backyard? Is it 5? Is it 3? Is it 1? So I think that's just nice to do. And then, you know, the noise increase with bringing that driveway or that entrance when it wasn't, it started as a carpool entrance and now it's being used as an entrance and now it's going to be the main entrance. So things are really changing with the CUP. And I'm not against the project. I just think we need to respect the neighbors close by and work with them. So how have you done that is my question. You know, you're looking at the other side of a fence. And if you, can you enlarge that so we can look at what is, you know, 42 feet, what can you see if it's 42 feet from, can you enlarge that a little bit? So we can see Gambetta. And do you see that pool to the right? Keep going larger, larger, larger so we can all see it. Do you see that pool? Okay, so where are the light poles and where does it turn? So do you see the house to the right on Gambetta and the pool? You know, they just.
There are no light poles. There aren't any there right now.
Okay.
There was never any proposed for Gambetta Lane.
But did you invite this house to walk with you today if you had the ASCC walk it today?
I'm happy to address that question. If you'd like me to do it at the end of public comments, I can do it. Typically, we take in all the comments and then we respond to it at
Okay,
that time.
so
But
another
that
one
was,
is the.
that one was noticed, just
Okay,
so
if
to
you're
put that. to rest.
adding trees, we don't want to take away views from that site either. So we can't tell where the trees are going to go. And if, you know, that property has a view of Windy Hill, so are the trees going to get very large that you're putting in? Let's see. I guess the light poles and the trees that are planted and then the 42 feet, will it, you know, can you see it from the backyards? I mean, I think you should have the circular properties have a private tour, like Hawthorne's did a tour. We were able to walk on the property. ASCC used to invite the residents and I'm just finding that frustrated that we're not invited to walk with you and we live here too. So, you know, if you had a gathering today, I would have been there if I was invited. So, so I'm concerned about the height of the building, the light spill, and the noise. And I'm all for kids and laughter. There's no problem with that and welcoming people into our community, but we have to respect the neighbors. Thank you.
Out of the schoolhouse, you want to do that question now or at the end of, let's wait till the end of.
Yeah, I have a running list of items that I can provide responses to now. Yes.
All right, Leah, go ahead. You are able to speak.
Oh, great. This is actually Michael Breyer. I am Leah Sullivan's husband. It's very nice to listen in on this meeting. We're at 2 Creek Park Drive, which is in Portola Valley. We actually have our 4-year-old who goes and plays soccer every week on Saturday at Priory. And we are in support of the project, not just because of what we see as Priory being supportive of the community, but also really because of the benefit it has on the children in the community. So that is, one of the reasons we moved here, and we would be excited as members of the community to see greater facilities for the children. So thank you.
Betsy,
Yes,
ahead and
I
speak.
do. Betsy Morgan Taylor. I want to just say that the Priory is a beloved institution and a wonderful neighbor. I really want to keep it that way, so the spirit of my comments are so intended. I would like to ask the architect, our commissioners and staff to be as sensitive as humanly possible to the light spill problem. It's not just a light spill problem, it's actually the parking and roadway lighting that concerns me the most. And I think we can refer most recently to the 2 renovations that our local public schools underwent with a lot of public input on the front end, but we did end up with a lot of somewhat, I won't say miserable, nobody that lives in Portola Valley is miserable, but it's really affected the quality of life of neighbors in Portola Valley Ranch in particular, who look out on a significantly lit campus there at Corte Madera. So if we could get a comparison that would reassure us on that order, both of the height of the poles, the lumen, and the spacing of the poles, that might or might not reassure us. I think that is something I'd like to hear more about. And just to urge the consideration of lesser lumens and shorter poles. And if it means more of them, I know it will come at somewhat of a greater expense, but I think in the long term, it's quite worth it. Thank you so much for your consideration and front-end thought in making this the best possible plan for the residents and for the students and faculty. Good evening.
Thanks, Betsy.
All right,
Guys?
we have no other members with their hand raised at this time.
So, if we want to do it now, or do we, let's get the debrief on the questions, and then we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Yes. So I have a couple of questions that I can address now. And that is regarding Judith Murphy's comment. The Conservation Committee letter that was provided for this project is included as attachment 17 to the staff report. And so that may help you have a better understanding of what was reviewed and provided from the Conservation Committee. And regarding Christie's comments, so the neighboring property at 230 Nathorst was noticed for this meeting. And so they received a letter in the mail for it. There is a site visit that was included on the public notice for properties within 300 feet of the site. And that kind of correlates to our initial opening statements around the public comment that the ASSC has already heard. And I think that is all that I have for just correcting the record. If there's anything else you'd like me to speak directly to, I'd be happy to.
So we're just going to take a few-minute break so that the commissioners can go into the bathroom, and then we'll be back.
For those on Zoom, it will be a 5-minute break. Please stay on. However, you'll not hear any sound as we'll be muting the mics.
Hey, guys, we're gonna get started again, or I should say
All right,
restart.
so now we're back to public comments are over, and now it's going to be up to the commission to have a discussion.
Yep.
You want to lead us off? All right.
So this is meant to be a discussion amongst.
This is the commission discussion.
So I do feel like it's a complicated position that we're in to be evaluating this project supposing that the CUP amendment is approved.
Right.
But I mean, that's the position we're in. I think we can do that. I think we need to somehow be clear that presupposing that the hypothetical situation that the CUP amendment is approved is the premise, and that we're not making a recommendation to the planning commission as to whether or not to approve the CUP amendment, which is outside of our domain. I'm sorry. And so given that we're not making a recommendation as to whether or not to approve the CUP amendment,
We're not, we're making a recommendation to the planning commission.
right? And therefore, the only thing that our recommendation can do is presume an entitlement to the things that the CUP amendment is asking for, which is the, without recommending that that be the case. That the square footage be an entitlement, the new road be an entitlement, and so forth. Because these are, as I understand it, the critical aspects of the CUP amendment.
That is where the proposed site improvements overlap with the conditional use permit.
Thank you. So presuming those as an entitlement, I think in many regards, the applicant has done a really nice job to try and meet the spirit of our design guidelines. There are a couple areas that I think we have seen them engage in the conversation and present something that does a better job meeting our expectations, especially the lighting. I appreciate the presentation of a minimum lighting concept that is really the minimum municipal code requirement. And I think that's what I would like to recommend that goes forward. I think the acoustics is a big issue. Given that in the past, the Planning Commission has provided conditions to require acoustic studies and acoustic monitoring, I do think we're in a position to make a recommendation that utilizes that suggests utilizing that kind of ability to tie that kind of care to the project.
I get where you're going.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Not that I don't expect to be covered.
Well,
but-
we'll have a discussion here, so.
Yeah.
Gina, you want to take a stab at it?
Just with some comment. I mean, I
Yeah,
have to take a
comments,
stab.
and we'll revisit.
Yes, I mean, I generally agree with what Kenny's, what Kenny's saying. And I think, in some of the things that are part of what we're weighing in on, for instance, the increase in impervious surface, I mean,
It's over.
it is, it is over, I mean, in looking at the plan, it feels though, nothing feels oversized or like there's this expansion of square footage without any sort of respect for incorporating landscape as well. So, I mean, it's hard while it is pushing over the limit, it's, given the size of the Priory, it feels like it's probably not too much. I don't know how you guys feel about that. And it does seem like, making that better circulation for drop off is gonna help with, some of the traffic issues that currently exist. So I think in general, for me, I don't think that's an issue, with what that number is, but I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Just kind of focusing on these specifics. I don't know if we want to talk about that and then we can go into other
Finish your
stuff,
thoughts
or-
and then I'll
Okay.
talk and then we'll
Okay, great.
get in the boat.
And then, and interestingly, the square footage itself, it feels like that's not really like the square footage of the athletic center and how that affects the conditional use permit is really outside of our, way. And so we don't really need to address that in terms of things we might ultimately look at. And it does feel like with the site development permit and the cubic yards of cut and fill, that's all been respectful. They selected a pretty flat area to build to cut down on that, which I think is nice. And, in general, I feel like it's a really nice project. There's been a lot of, it really acknowledges the site. There's been a lot of thought put into kind of minimizing the bulk of what is a very bulky structure. And I appreciate the explanation for the height. Just being able to better understand, why it is on the taller side for buildings in this area. And yeah, I mean, I think there has been a lot of, sorry, I'm losing my mind because I'm so pregnant. Anyway, a lot of thought given to, how to mitigate light spill outs from the building itself, for instance. I think it's nice, there's just been a lot of thought to that and how that affects the community. I would agree with Kenny that using the minimal lighting scheme, especially given the concerns and the public comments, seems like the best path forward, and understanding, there are going to be building code restrictions that are going to apply here for what can and can't be done. And then also in agreement with the acoustics, that feels like something that needs to be addressed in a more explicit and thorough way, acknowledging the concerns of people nearby and feeling like the findings so far don't really sync with what people are experiencing. And I think that's okay. I don't know where we are. Yeah.
Well, I think Portola Valley parking lots, Portola Valley Town Hall parking lots must not be up to code. Because we like darkness. Okay. I think it is a beautiful project. I think the building is fabulous and good for you. I mean, it's really exciting. And I love all the talk about resilience and, bringing fun and everything to the kids. So everything in that department, I totally get. I have been very involved with the Priory over the years, and I was at the prior meeting. I was very surprised when I got my packet today and there were no acoustic studies. So, I mean, because we were very clear in the last meeting that that's the thing that we worried about, were those garage doors or whatever they are, when they're open and out in the field, and there's acoustics pushing out and then acoustics pushing back, because if we look at the land, not a sphere, what is it? It's a bowl. It's a bowl. And when you're in a bowl, like I said, I can hear people having a conversation outside of Corte Madera School, 200 yards from my house, if they're just talking. So, I think that's one of the wonderful things about the town is the quiet and the darkness. And the darkness, I mean, from the plan that I saw, you guys are going to have to do something about those lights. And I wouldn't support any lights on the Gambetta, on the entrance, coming in there, because as I said very snarkily, that's what headlights are for. You don't need road lights. So you need lights for where people walk. and that's it. So, I mean, even that lower parking lot, you know, and where the redwoods are, I don't think that there needs to be, I mean, there need to be path lights. But, you know, we don't want lit up parking lots. And especially the other thing we talked about for years is that this is part of the scenic corridor. And so the experience of being in Portola Valley is also at the Priory. And so, you know, that's why I love it that you're going to keep the meadow, you know, where you come in. And I think a pound of poppy seeds is all you need, you know, and I hope you reconsider keeping that eucalyptus because I just think it's a really exciting tree. So though my issues, so we go along and go along, acoustics is my big one. Lighting is the other one. I hope and worry that over time with the water issues that we've seen and that you explained today that there are other parts of the property where you have done mitigations for drainage and stuff like that, that's not going to, it's not going to add any more square footage or any other things that we need to do in order to manage that. So you know, but big thing for me is acoustics, and I don't know how we handle that. And I mean, we don't have anything to go on. So we really, I think we need a study, and I think that that's something, I think we could approve this project with some conditions that go to the planning commission, that we want to see action on the following items. And is that how you would like to see us proceed?
So the applicant team can definitely take your feedback now and incorporate that into their plans to go forth to the planning commission. And upon your approval, it's not atypical for the ASC to provide a recommendation for approval with conditions. And those conditions could be things like providing an acoustic report that demonstrates that the Priory will be meeting the town's requirements for noises. And then the planning commission will take it over from there for regards to what could be allowed. But, you know, since it's design related, you may be able to also kind of provide feedback for having the applicant make design related changes that may mitigate for noise impacts if possible or feasible. And so having them consider that as they move forward would be like another possible path forward that may attempt to address the concerns that you have raised tonight.
And I'm very curious about multiple sports and traffic coming in for multiple games and that there isn't enough parking over time. So that's another thing that I think we need to look at. You mentioned signage. You know, I don't want to turn on to Gambetta and see sign to left, right arrows, you know, enter here, depart here, you know, no entry here. You know, I want it to be really pure, you know, if we go down that road. So, I mean, that's just so you guys hear what I'm thinking. Those are the things that trip me up. And so, would we talk about it, a conditional approval? Is that a way you're willing to go? Or, okay.
The only thing I differ with you on is the eucalyptus. I'm afraid of them.
It's just a beautiful tree.
I agree, it's beautiful, but
I know they blow up in the fires.
And I was gonna say, I feel similarly. I am not pro eucalyptus.
Well, and also I just, in all my recollection of all the safety things, meetings we've been to in years, I don't remember talking about getting the students out of the Priory. You know, and what does that look like? What's the rescue plan for the Priory? You know, we know about all the other schools, but you know, that's important. So, all right. So you're also in favor of a conditional approval. And so let's say that we all love the project and we want to see it approved. What would be our condition?
I think there would be one for requiring an acoustic study and design changes as necessary to show that it meets the town's noise ordinances. Including reporting and monitoring to substantiate that.
Including what thing?
Reporting and monitoring. to substantiate that because this is something that the town has done before.
Just on acoustics or other items?
That for the acoustics. Proceeding with the minimum municipal code required lighting. Do we want to have one on the meadow?
I think we are in kind of, are we in agreement on the meadow? You know, just the road goes through the meadow, no landscaping. I think there was one tree, but you know, is it a valley oak? Okay. Yes. And of course, whenever you grade, whenever you disturb the soil, all the invasives come in. So, you know, we'll have to do that very carefully, but you guys know how to do that, you know, and we'll all be watching. So, but I think it'll work. Okay, what else? Conditions. The things that tripped us up.
And I guess, you know, for the recommendation of the minimal lighting scheme, what you were showing is minimal lighting per municipal code or minimal lighting per building code or, yeah, the CBC. So I think that would be more of what we want to
Yeah. One light per door.
recommend, you know, recommending the minimal per CBC as opposed to municipal code, if that's within our ability or purview.
Can we do that?
Um,
Building code?
yes, you could condition it so that the final lighting plan complies with the minimum requirements of the California Building Code. Does that sound sufficient?
Yeah, just to make sure that that's, because it
About
seems
my
like that's what
whole
drove that final.
Issue with multiple sports and parking and, you know, the times that the campus is going to get crowded, you know, and parking. We need to look at that again. It's only 87 new spaces. Was that less? 39? 39 or something? Was that what I heard? And
There is.
so what if there are 4 sports going on?
So the applicant can also speak to this, but the attachment narrative that explains how the uses will work on campus specify that there are no new uses associated with the gym. Right now, you have teams that are using the Gambetta gym, the existing gym, and then they're also using the outdoor facilities. So this would just allow all sports to be able to use indoor facilities. So they're not increasing the program usage as explained in this narrative. But they are maintaining what they are having and allowing for more than one sport or more than one team or more than one gender in some cases, being able to use facilities at the same time. And if that is my understanding of it, if the applicant had more to add to it, they may want to.
And my understanding a long time ago was that because of the scenic corridor, when you looked into the campus, you wouldn't see any parking. And now there's a whole strip of parking there along between the 2 fields. And I want to make sure that that is not going to be embellished, you know, with more parking in there. Where are the 39 spaces? Just around campus?
Yeah. 1 second.
Just shoot me just a quick picture. So
I think this would be. I think this will be a governing question regarding the CUP.
And also to reinforce the usage of the parking area. Sorry, there's a parking study that was provided as an attachment as well that reinforces that the parking is adequate for the site. But I'm pulling up a parking plan to show you the location of those parking spaces.
and I think parking's a big part of the CUP also. So, okay.
And I'll just layer in that we're also using
Louder.
trees. I'll just also layer in that we're using trees and landscape to shield the parking. So there are those rows of trees that help mitigate the view from Portola Valley Road.
look at the traffic motion? Or just keep talking?
Well, do you want to look at the parking?
I
Okay.
did.
We can do that and then we can.
I know. I couldn't get that
Oh, we
far.
know. We definitely know.
No parking on Gambetta. Right. Here we go.
So I would say a majority of these spaces are being removed from the road along Priory School Drive and being increased and relocated over to the existing parking lot adjacent to the athletic center. I believe there's about 2 more rows of parking that moves towards the field here. And then there's some parking that was added at the rear of the campus near the middle school courtyard.
And I would hope that there would be landscaping along here, the outside. Yeah.
So the parking plan, I can pull up the planting plan if you'd like as well. It's going to be deeper impacted.
I believe that's the area where the applicant proposed the adding in additional redwoods and kind of the pines to kind of help bring that from that entry gateway kind of over. They're adding kind of some of those redwoods and pines. So we're pulling up the planting plan so that we can share.
Right.
But they're
We're
using
seeing
that to
it.
screen.
But I also want to understand what the CUP position is on parking in the front of the campus. So,
Okay, so here's the planting plan to show you where the screening is for the kind of main scope of work. And then we can jump back to the parking plan to look at the grander parking plan. But so you'll see a series of trees and perhaps the landscape architect could speak more directly to this, a series of trees along the expanded parking area and along the front of the gym and along the side as you enter into, well, I guess, or exiting out of the site.
Yeah, that triangle that you see, we put a lot of redwoods right there, particularly because that's a big view across the field to that parking lot. So where you see the extreme density of trees, we really looked at that because we think that's the big view that's open across the field. But then additionally to the south of those new parking spaces, there's a line of more diverse trees, oaks and California sycamores and other native trees along that frontage too. So there's multiple layers that I think we're achieving that kind of parking screen.
Good, thank you.
On the screening question, I was kind of surprised by the assertion that there's not, that you don't have, in terms of the appearance of the building. It's a small point, but on the color of the building, the assertion that you don't have a color option closer to that which was presented in the early rendering is surprising to me.
Yeah, let me talk a
There's
little bit more
cement
about that.
fiber.
Yeah, so you're right in that fiber cement panels come in a whole range of colors and a whole range of different manufacturers. The specific fiber cement panel that we chose was because of its 3-dimensional profile. So if you look at the material sample and the material board, it almost looks corrugated in a way. It's got a kind of depth to it, which is nice because you get a little bit of a shadow line. The material itself has kind of texture. And you get that larger texture on the building because of that profile. That particular material is unique in that no other manufacturer provides something of that kind of scale and texture. And it only comes in 3 colors. One is sort of a white, one is a really dark gray, and then the other one is this kind of middle, kind of earthy, lightish brown color, which is the one that we went with. So that's the reason specifically that a different color isn't available because of that particular profile.
It would be more compelling if you had said that it had acoustic properties that but I don't think that texture is going to make a difference to the view of the building from afar.
it's kind of a mid-scale level, but what's interesting is it does have kind of a shadow that's cast from it. So what's nice is the material has a little bit of play as the shadow kind of goes against it at different times of the day. But it does give it kind of a nice depth and richness that provides some more kind of liveliness to the facade.
Remember when when the track color changed at the very last second? I don't know if you were around for that, but the track was going to be blue and all of a sudden there was no blue track. So but it looks like a track. It's good. But it was a problem. It just happened like that. Sorry, the product's not available anymore. All right, so I think the best thing we can do is give them we want to get you guys moving. So give a conditional approval that'll go to the planning commission. Okay, so let's go off your notes then you've been taking notes too. So we move to approve the project with the following conditions.
Yeah. Yeah. And Kenny, I feel like
Just
Jake,
one
if you wanna take
clarification,
it
it's
back,
not an
yeah.
approval, it's a recommendation for approval to the
recommendation.
planning commission.
Recommendation for approval, right, sorry, get that language right. With the following concerns
Yeah, so the conditions that I understand to be captured are requiring an acoustic survey to demonstrate compliance with town requirements. And for the lighting, that was to allow for, or to revise the lighting plan to allow for the minimal necessary to comply with the California Building Code.
building
And
code. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about the acoustic reports and things that we want the planning commission to look at?
so those are two conditions, and then the reporting and monitoring of the acoustic noises is more like a recommendation to the planning commission to consider. So we can add that as a kind of like would that be?
So I think the best would be applicant, the ASCC is telling you to get an acoustic study. And the ASCC is recommending that the planning commission review the acoustic study to determine the impacts of that as part of their review. And you are recommending that they include conditions related to reporting and monitoring moving forward, like after it's built, reporting and monitoring any excess noise to staff so that we can ensure compliance.
Precisely.
One point
And
of
then did you want any
clarification.
conditions related to parking or parking screening? Were you satisfied with that? That was the last bit.
I presume that the planning commission is going to be looking at that.
Yes, they will.
But because, yes, I am concerned about parking. So yes, I want them to be, these are the things I want planning commission's eyes on, as they take this up. Lighting, parking, acoustics, primarily. Yes? Anything else you want to add to that?
No,
Landscaping feels good. The architecture feels good. Those are the items.
I think I had originally made the comment about the materials and the coloration. I think it doesn't need to be an official condition of approval or anything like that. It just, it would be nicer.
More consistent with the buildings that are on site now, that kind of blend more to that kind
Correct.
of brown color, the wood kind of color.
Correct.
Do we want to be
I think it
called
would
in
make a
again
big
for that? Do we want to have our eyes on it?
I think if the ASCC provides very clear direction, and again, this is going to planning commission. So you're providing very clear direction, planning commission. We're recommending that the applicant look at this. We want to look at different colors. The planning commission, and you've said what colors you want, the planning commission will review it and say, okay, yes, we feel that you've made that, or hey, ASCC, we disagree with you. That would be up to the planning commission to make that.
And they're going to be down 2 or 3 members. Is that not correct?
They should be reappointed. They should have their full normal 5,
Okay,
similar
good.
to you guys, because that's going to happen in
Okay.
the new year. So
Right.
we're going to they'll try to go the first available meeting after reappointments. since there isn't really a commission after the new year because of so many reappointments that need to happen.
I guess maybe before we go down the road of doing something like that, I mean, like, it feels a little bit aggressive in terms of making specific color recommendations. I
No,
mean, I
agree.
think,
And also,
I-
it's probably going to change
yeah.
over the years to
Yeah.
come. before
I
it's-
guess maybe just speaking to you guys as an opinion on this. I don't think it needs to be rolled into the conditions of, or the recommendation for an approval with conditions.
I
I don't know,
agree.
Kenny, how you feel. It just,
I'm flexible on that. I thought, as far as the condition is concerned, what I thought we were discussing was just to make a recommendation to consider and, for the planning commission to look at the color, that was something that was pointed out as,
sure.
which is, which is a pretty soft, is,
And moving forward, the applicant can provide a narrative of what considerations they considered in hearing your recommendation to the materials and colors. And why or why not they decided to move in the direction that they end up moving in. So if it's in the holding their ground on their current materials, we can bring up the conversation that it made a recommendation and their stance on it is provided. Or if they decide that they find a material that meets the purpose and intent of the ASSC, they can include that and include in their narrative how that was changed to meet concerns by the ASSC. But either way, you'll get a response of the considerations to your recommendation from the applicant. If that sounds sufficient.
Oh, I feel good about it. You have what you need. You have our motion.
I think so. I think we just need someone to second it.
Can we ask one point of clarification? I apologize, staff and commissioners. On the acoustic study, the two staff members said something slightly different, and I just want to be very clear. We have our acoustical engineer on the line here, and as engineers, he needs very clear and solid directions, so we return with what is necessary. On the one hand, I heard staff mention an acoustical study to illustrate the meeting of current town rules and regulations. And I want to make sure that that is what the acoustical study that we'll be coming back with is.
Yes, so the acoustical study should consider your operations, current and potentially future, on if you are kind of the concern is, okay, you have two sports going on. What's happening? While we can't say guarantee, yes, we know this exact sound because it hasn't happened yet, the study should at least take and look at, okay, generally this sport creates this amount of sound. This sport creates this amount of sound. Given X, Y, Z, we anticipate that the decibel level at the property line should be X when these sports are occurring at the same time. And then building off of that, the reporting and monitoring is that if you say that number, we're going to hold you to it. And if it does start going over generally as part of a conditional use permit, so slightly above and beyond this commission, but as part of the use permit, it will say, hey, if we get a complaint, we're going to come to the Priory and say, hey, confirm we had this complaint at this date, what activities were occurring, please monitor. If it does come back as that activity produced noise above what is required or allowed under the town, there will have to be operational changes to ensure that the noise doesn't happen again. And so that's going to be kind of part of that monitoring and reporting program.
Thank you, that's clear.
Feel good about it. So we haven't had a second on our motion. Someone want to second it?
I will second it.
a second.
So we have a vote.
Yes.
Who made the motion? Was it Gina? And then second would be Kenny? Gina, did you make the motion?
I was seconding. it.
You were seconding? Did you make the motion then?
Say who made the motion.
Okay, sure.
Kenny makes the motion, you second.
And then
here
roll
we
call
go.
vote. So Chair War is absent. Vice Chair Flynn is no longer on the commission. Commissioner Breen,
Yes.
Commissioner Dixon,
Yes.
and Commissioner Chung.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes 301. And we're on to the next item.
Yes, and you guys are on the calendar. So it's good, we'll just keep this thing moving. Okay? We'll get through all these studies. Congrats. Yeah.
It's up to you. Yeah. And we got the rest.
What do we have?
All right, we'll go through the rest of the agenda. So we're on to item 4A, commission reports. Are there are none unless you guys have any other reports to give.
Well, at some point, I would love an answer to my question that I wrote in about 2 properties. If I could just get the names of the people and I could talk to them, unless you don't want me to talk to them. I don't understand why I can't get an answer. All right, because I can pursue it if you guys tell me. All right, but I want to get back to being a team with the planet. We were the best team. So
I think they have a lot.
I know they've got a lot, but I'm trying to help. And I can't help if I don't know. So, all right.
I had a, sorry.
Go ahead.
I had an action, from Jamie on, I think it was 350 Westridge,
350 Westridge.
that I reviewed, and made some recommendations on relating to the fence in particular, and an updated landscaping plan.
If we could have members that are speaking, take some of the conversations outside the hall, please, and thank you. I know it's cold out there, but just want to finish up really quick, so thank you all. Okay, so, sorry, I heard half of that. So you had you reviewed 350 Westridge.
I believe it was 350 Westridge.
Okay.
And there was I don't remember the name. There was an updated landscaping plan and there was a fencing plan that had some aspects that were not compliant with code. And it was basically sent back to the applicant to make it the fencing compliant with code. And I approved the landscaping plan on the basis that no new plantings were being added.
Okay. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I don't think there has been much else. At least not to my knowledge. The appeal for the undergrounding, or which appeal?
That's good for the neighbors to happen. But I think that's done.
There's a couple.
The one I
projects on
did
this.
was 350 Grove, not Westridge.
50 Grove, got it.
The ones I'm looking for. are
350.
okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Do we have minutes?
There are no minutes included. Yep. And then our next regularly scheduled ASCC meeting will be January 27th. We are skipping the first one due to the appointments that are needed. We don't expect that we'll have enough commissioners to actually have a meeting. So it would be January 27th is the next meeting.
2 people are coming to ASCC and I will be the 3rd.
Mhm. Yeah, we're hoping that the town can appoint a lot of the commissioners. So I believe interviews for appointments are supposed to happen on the 8th. But Terrence will be in touch on the dates and times for that with you guys. And so, yeah, that would be our next meeting. And I believe we have 2 items tentatively scheduled for that meeting. But we will, yep, January 27th. So, and we will, make sure to let you guys know when we have those formalized and ready to go. That's all at Terrence's level. He has, kept those cards very close to his hands.
I have a question from the December 9th meeting,
Mhm.
which was last week, where there was, I believe there was some discussion about, maybe getting the packets with a little more advance, in advance. Is that something that's gonna get, I just wasn't there and I don't know, is that something that's gonna get implemented, that we can kind of get
So-
access to that sooner? Or I know
Yeah.
you guys are doing a lot, but it
Um,
is often tough to get it on Friday and then to do
10
the
days, they want it
hearing.
when the notice goes out, correct? So the feedback was that you want the application when the notice is generally sent out, which is
Get our packet.
10 to 6, or 6 to 10 days before. I think the code technically says 6, but we try to do 10, just to give the public more applicability. So I'm already working with Good City staff and Emily, of course, to start preparing for that implementation. So we are going to try to make sure that happens on this next meeting. And if not, we'll let you know why. But we are going to try to get you guys the packet significantly earlier than you guys currently are, since I know it happens usually Friday and then, the weekend and then Monday's the meeting. So it is a pretty short timeline.
I've done 22 years of Friday, picking it up on Friday. I'm so used to it. You spend all weekend. It's hanging.
Was it ASCC on another day previously? No, it's always been on a Monday?
You picked up your packet Friday afternoon.
Mhm.
Were they always 250 pages though?
Well, we included the hard sets. That's why she had to pick it up. So it was probably still that long, yes. And then we can also, I know we've been having a lot of issues with the size of attachments. We are trying to work with our applicants to have them send us the most reduced size that they can do. That still has details, so it doesn't take an hour to load on your computer. Because every time I open a packet, I regret it. My computer yells at me. So we'll also look into that.
Every time I scroll to page 500, it just disappears.
Mhm.
Anyway, I don't think it's like they didn't.
All right, so then through the chair, do we have an adjournment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Perfect.